Club. It's a sanctuary for homeschool moms. It is a place for literature lovers to come together and share their thoughts. If you aren't in a book club or want to get one started, this is for you. So, I've been part of a book club for a few years now, and the best part is the intellectual stimulation I get from hearing other viewpoints on a book. My favorite part is we love to read weird books because um, the book club meetings are more about the conversations than the books we read. And trust me, we've read weird ones. So this show is going to be all about books you can add to your book club list. So, hello, Rebel Moms, and welcome to the Life Unboxed podcast. I am Jody, the mom, wife, homeschool mom of six, and successful mom entrepreneur. And I am bringing you information and inspiration on raising kids, running a business, and the most important one, keeping your sanity on most days. Be sure to get your Rebel Mom checklist so you can work from home and homeschool confidently. And you can get that at lifeunboxed.blog. You can find the episode show notes, tools to make your life easier, and more information at lifeunboxed.blog. Now let's get into the show. Okay, so you need to find or start a book club for homeschool moms because you need to find a group of moms that are in the same place you are. Homeschooling and working from home can feel isolating sometimes. We are home all the time and we can't always go on all the outings, and that's okay. You don't need to go on all the outings, but find a group that is intellectually stimulating for you. If you can't find a book club in your area, then start one. We meet every 6 weeks or so the commitment isn't overwhelming and we get to talk about books. It is totally worth making the time for. So, we usually meet at a local coffee shop to discuss the books, coffee, books, and pastries. Now, that is my kind of mom's night out, okay? Many of the books will also have book club questions that you can start using. So you don't have to think of everything yourself and you can start somewhere. So there's no excuses. That's the whole point of that. Coffee, pastries, books, and you even get questions provided for you. There's no excuses not to start a book club. Um, so any excuses you had floating around in your head, I've just eliminated every single one. So this is one of those things that you don't need to think about for too long. Just do it. Okay. Because one of the benefits is it's really going to push you to read out of your comfort zone. So we usually pick a book based on a majority vote, and that's why we've read some weird books. But I like reading out of my comfort zone. So, yes, there have been books that I just did not like, but I don't regret reading them or discussing them. We do have certain topics that are totally taboo, like homeschooling or parenting books, romance novels, horror, and explicit books we just don't read. So those are automatically off the list. And there have been some great books that we've read and new authors discovered. However, you do your book club, be sure to read out of your comfort zone. Okay, so now let's get to the best part. Let's talk about 10 book club books you don't want to miss. The first one is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I think that's how you say his last name. So, this was our first book we read, and it was an interesting one. The premise surprised all of us, but it really created a great conversation. I don't know if I would recommend it for your first book club book, though. Number two, this was a double whammy. So we read I Was Anastasia by Ariel Lawton and then The Resurrection of the Romanovs by Greg King and Penny Wilson. So this is one of my favorite ways to read historical fiction and historical accounts. So we read the fiction book first and then the nonfiction. And we were able to discuss the creative license taken by the author in the fiction book while comparing it to the actual events. And it also just helps to kind of sift through what was creative license and what actually happened. Number three, Life and Death in Shanghai by Chang Nine. And I probably just butchered her name. So, this is the true story of her life. She was a Chinese citizen who was wrongfully imprisoned during the Cultural Revolution. And the author is a masterful storyteller. You feel that you are with her in the prison cell. And it raised a great discussion on parallels in the US, how we would respond, and what we can do to prevent something like this. So I passed it to my oldest son to read after we finished with it, and he also thought it was a very good book as well. Number four, The Lost Symbol by Dan Brown. So this was definitely an out of the box read for most of us. We wanted to pick a fun fiction book that would be different. The discussion was definitely lively because we had so many rabbit holes to go down. Um, Dan Brown has a way of interweaving interesting ideas, out there conspiracy theories, and strange facts into an exciting, heart stopping story. Number five, Marmy by Sarah Miller. So, this was a fun, easy read. It is perfect for Christmas time or summer read. It is the story of Little Women from Marmy's point of view. Now, I'm always skeptical of authors who try to write well-loved stories because they usually miss the mark. This was surprisingly good and really nailed the story and character from Little Women. Number six, The Hiding Place by Corey Ten Boom. Now, this is the true story of Corey Ten Boom and her family, and it's sure to inspire you. It was a great read and a great discussion. This is a must read for your book club. Number seven, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. So this falls into the realm of weird, but it was a thought-provoking read. It led to some very interesting discussions, but it is weird. And number eight, Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. So I am an Agatha Christie fan. This one isn't my favorite one, but it was still a fun book to read. Number nine, The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. So, Kristen Hanna is one of my favorite modern fiction authors. She gives so much depth to her characters. I really enjoyed this book, but I was sick for the discussion, and so that was a little disappointing. um, and number 10 is Mrs. Lincoln's Dressmaker by Jennifer Chiaverni. Okay. So I really enjoyed reading this book. The author handles the nuances of this era very well. And although the book is fiction, she sticks very close to the historical events. And remember, book club is more about the conversation than the actual books to read. Okay, so now we're going to talk about 10 books that I want to read for book club. Okay, so you actually get 20 books out of this whole deal. Number one is Where the Crawdad Sings by Delilah Owens. So I've actually already read this, but I would still love to read it again as a book club book. The discussions we could have from all the topics in this book, they would keep us going for a long time. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Now, I haven't read this one, but my husband keeps telling me we need to read it. So when we circle around to back to a dystopian phase, I'll add it to the list. Number three, On Stories by C.S. Lewis. So I love reading about the creative process. This is a book of essays from C.S. Lewis on writing fiction. For book lovers, I think this would just be a fascinating read. Number four, 10 books that screwed up the world and 5 books that didn't help by Benjamin Weicker. The title says it all, and I think this would be a fun nonfiction book. Number 5 is The Exodus by Leon Uris. So this is one of my all-time favorite books. I think I've read it 4 or 5 times at this point. It is one of the best historical fiction books on Israel becoming a state, and it is exceptionally well researched. So Leon Uris did more than like 1,000 interviews for this book and traveled over 1,500 miles or something like that. So there's a lot that goes into it. Number 6, A Personal Odyssey by Thomas Sowell. We're actually reading that as our next book club book. And he is one of my favorite nonfiction authors. He's incredibly intelligent, and this is his story, and it is well worth the read. Number 7, A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And I know I just butchered his name. So every once in a while, Again, we need to circle around to a dystopian novel to give us perspective on our world today and where our culture is at. So don't be afraid of the dystopian novels. They make great discussions. So The Maltese Falcon is number 8 by Dashiell Hammett. So there's so many cultural references to this book that I actually want to find out why. So I haven't read it yet, but I think it would be a good addition to a book club list. Number 9, a Dorothy Sayers book. I am interested in reading any of her books and discussing whether it is a mystery or a philosophical book. I think would be interesting and make for a great discussion. And number 10, Night by Eli Wiesel. So my oldest son read this for school, but I've never read it. And hope in the midst of horrific darkness is a necessary reminder, and we should always read these accounts of man's capacity for inhumanity. So, Mom, a book club is a great place to connect with other moms. It is more than just reading books, it is also about having a great discussion. And reading outside of your comfort zone will produce thought provoking discussions and add new authors to your to be read pile. So be sure to click on one of the links in the description below and discover a world that waits for you. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out lifeunboxed.blog and download your Rebel Mom checklist. Remember, you can work from home and homeschool confidently. And I will see you next time.